What's up, combatants, and welcome back to our Mortal Kombat movie franchise in review. So today we will be reviewing the latest Mortal Kombat movie, Mortal Kombat 2021. As always, I'm Steve Trezza, joined by the lovely Alexa James. I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan, and Alexa is kind of
casual
newbie. With the K, newbie.
Viewer.
Yes. We thought it would be a good idea if we watched all the movies and ranked the movies from your casual moviegoer and a Mortal Kombat nerd. We will have spoilers in this movie, but I guess I will tell you guys when we get to that. We've been ranking the movies as we go, so far our movies in order are at number 1, Mortal Kombat Legends, Scorpion's Revenge. At number 2, Mortal Kombat 1995. And in last place, Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
I'd rather just pretend that one doesn't exist, but for the sake of this review, we have to put it in there.
Yes. I think everyone likes to pretend that Annihilation doesn't exist.
Spoiler free. There were certain angles that I was like, meh, on, but as far as storytelling and casting and costuming, I actually thought this was pretty good. I don't know, I enjoyed it.
So, I have mixed thoughts on the movie. I do think there are a lot of things that they did very well, but I also think that there were a lot of things that, to me, felt like executive interruption, where it was like the studio being like, well, why don't we do this? And that's kind of where a lot of this movie, for me, fell short. But I think they nailed it with the casting. Very diverse cast.
The casting was so good, and there are just things about the movie, like the way that certain characters are introduced, that I really enjoyed. The last few movies that we watched, it was very much, you meet Liu Kang, you meet Sonia, you meet Johnny Cage. Like, it's like in a specific order, and in this one they were like, no. And I was like, oh, something different. We might be joined by a special guest.
Special guest, we have Miso the cat here with us as well.
Oh, you're so good. She watched the movie too, but she was asleep for a lot of it, so she might not have a lot to say. I liked a lot of it. There were certain things that you had pointed out that you didn't like, and after I mulled it over for about the 5 minutes since we've actually watched the movie, I totally see where you're coming from. Because I'm a casual viewer, and I don't know as much about this game, and like, I like certain aspects of it, but it's not my Pokemon. Like, so yeah. It's different for me watching this movie. Before
we stop spoiler free, I just want to mention that I feel like the movie branded itself, and from what a lot of the reviews that I'm seeing, where it's like Mortal Kombat fans of the lore will be very surprised with the movie, will enjoy the movie, and I feel like the studio was like, let's dive into the lore, but not too much. And then they kind of pulled back, and I feel like they wanted to do like a deep dive into it and keep things consistent with the game lore, but they were afraid to go all in. I actually thought that this movie was a good balance between original live-action Mortal Kombat and Scorpion's Revenge. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. The stats for the movie, like we've been doing with all the movies, Mortal Kombat was released on April 8th, 2021 internationally, but in the United States it was released April 23rd, 2021. It was directed by Simon McCoy, and this was his first movie, and he's really not on any other, like even in like production staff, it doesn't look like he's really done anything. That was a little concerning going into the movie, but as a first movie I'd say it's fine. The screenplay, written by Greg Russo, he also doesn't have really anything under his belt either, and Dave Callahan also wrote it. I believe he wrote a few okay movies. Doom, he wrote Godzilla, the 2014 one, which wasn't that great. He did the Expendables movies. He did the Expendables movies, Wonder Woman 1984. He did the screenplay for Shang-Chi. He also did Ant-Man and Zombieland Double Tap. None of his movies to me are great. They're kind of like in this mid-level range of movies, I think, that he's written. You always defend Ant-Man when I say it's the weaker of the Marvel movies. Ant-Man is a great movie. So then don't call it middle of the road. But when you look at his other movies, it's like, okay, Doom wasn't very good. The Expendables is okay. The Expendables 2 is okay. Godzilla wasn't very good. I didn't see Zombieland Double Tap. Wonder Woman 84 wasn't good. I have different opinions. It has a budget of around $95 million. What was that? Dr. Evil.
I only saw it out of the corner of my eye.
It has a budget of around $95 million, which is a lot. I guess in today's day and age it's not that much, but it does mean that they have a lot of faith in this movie. So I do hope that they're getting the viewers that they want, because the movie did feel like a setup movie, and I know that I believe it's Joe Taslim is the guy who plays Sub-Zero, is signed on for 4 movies. So they have plans to make this into a franchise, into a universe. So there you have it for the movie. So we start off in 1600s Japan.
My favorite era of time.
We see Hanzo Hasashi and his family, and then the Lin Kuei clan comes and basically kills his whole family and village and Shirai Ryu clan. Should say we're getting into spoilers now, and we're going to be talking about spoilers for the rest of the movie, so sorry if I spoiled that first part for you.
I love a good revenge fight. So I like the fact that there's like a blood feud between the two. It kind of makes sense that the 2 clans would be fighting.
It makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense, because you get no backstory of why Sub-Zero wants to kill Scorpion.
I don't need it. Personally, they sell it well enough that I don't even need a backstory as to why. And I think it's also because I've been watching these films now for quite some time, and I'm just like, they just fight.
What's the reason behind it? Why is Sub-Zero killing Scorpion and his clan? They don't explain that at all. I guess maybe because Scorpion had the marking, is maybe that what they're alluding towards, that he had the marking, and maybe one of the tournaments was coming up and Shang Tsung sent Sub-Zero out to kill him, much like he did in the upcoming tournament.
My question for you now is this a lore question, or is this a this movie only question?
Well, the lore has, the MK game lore is that Sub-Zero and Scorpion are rival clans, and Quan Chi hired both of them.
Right.
Since Sub-Zero kept up his end of the bargain, Quan Chi's payment to Sub-Zero's clan was that he just wiped out all of Scorpion's clan. That doesn't fit in the storyline, because unless...
Well, seeing as he is signed on for 3 more movies after this, maybe they'll go into that a little bit more?
I just don't see how they can have Quan Chi... they could write it in, but it's going to feel weird, because it's going to be I was brainwashing him all the time. How are they going to go about doing that? It
doesn't necessarily need to be brainwashing if you paid him to do something. For movies like this that have some sort of fantasy element to them, I tend to just dive in and let them take me along the lazy river, essentially. So for this, it was just very apparent to me that the clans are at war. And I don't know why, maybe I'll never know why. Some things in life are just like that. You don't even know why they started in the first place. So if they're not going to tell me now, unless it's a burning question and that is the whole purpose of the movie, I let it go.
I did like how then they only kind of explained the tournament in a 10-second text on the screen of this is it. Okay, we get it. We've seen, the original Mortal Kombat and Scorpion's Revenge, and you've played the games, and we get the gist of what the tournament is. We don't need it rammed down our throat.
If you're here because you like it already, and that's what's putting you in a seat, you don't need a long drawn out explanation. But if you know almost close to nothing and you want a little tidbit, here it is. We're not going to make you just sit through the whole thing again, which I liked. I appreciated that. We've got Sub-Zero versus Scorpion. Great scene. I loved the whole thing. And then you find that Scorpion has a daughter who was hidden away, who gets saved by Lord Raiden, who I loved Lord Raiden off the bat. New for me. I loved him off the bat.
Yeah, you haven't liked Raiden in the past movies.
I loved him right off the bat. I thought he was great. I also just love the actor who plays him. Asano Tadanobu? That's who it was? Yes. So he comes, saves Scorpion's daughter, and brings her to somewhere that she will be safe, because the whole point of Sub-Zero attacking Scorpion was that he wanted to end the clan. He did not successfully do that. The transition from feudal Japan to current day, I forget where they are, but I think they're in America. He's wrapping his wrists.
I think Chicago.
I think he said that. He's wrapping his wrists, but they're yellow. And it's just...
So there was this whole big debate when the trailers were out. Who is Cole Young? Is he some character from one of the movies? And he's just a descendant of Scorpion, which is one of the things I said in one of my theory videos, and one of the things that a lot of people on the internet were saying, and that's what he turned out to be. And they just write out in that text, it's like the descendant of Hanzo Hasashi can help fulfill the prophecy. So that's who we got. I don't hate it. It is what it is. We get Jax. He shows up because he saw the dragon symbol that's on Cole's body. Him and Sonya are trying to find all of the chosen warriors. So this was a new thing where if you're chosen, you get the dragon tattoo, and then if you kill someone with it, it transfers it to you, and then that's how you become chosen, and that's your ticket into the tournament. I didn't hate it. It was a little corny, but I didn't hate it.
Yeah, I didn't hate it either. I think my only thing, and again, I have to suspend some sort of disbelief. I'm watching a Mortal Kombat movie. It looked exactly like a dragon. And poor Cole, sweet baby Cole, is like, I was born with it. And I was like, that's a tattoo. That's straight up a tattoo. But I didn't hate the way it looked. I was just like, that's not a birthmark.
Sub-Zero attacks them. Jax is like, go save your family. I got Sub-Zero. And while this is all going on, Cole and his family are taking this very well. Like, they're not freaking out. They're not asking questions. They're just going with it, which, okay.
So I actually saw that completely differently. He's watching this. They're out getting dinner at a diner post-fight, and then all of a sudden it starts snowing. His daughter's like, what is going on? Like, she thinks it's weird that it starts to snow, and he says to his wife, and he's just like, look at this, and then the windows start freezing over. And then this ninja who makes ice float is just here. Jax pulls up and just screams, get in the car. They're all like, what? They are questioning it. It's not just
not really,
like,
though. They're kind of just like, okay.
You would be in absolute shock.
I did like Sub-Zero. Shout out to Sub-Zero. He was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie.
I loved Sub-Zero in this movie. I don't think we got enough Sub-Zero in the other movies that he was in. It was just like, there's another ninja, he wears blue.
They also didn't have the budget to do the ice effects that they did today.
Which was my complaint in that first one. I was like, why isn't the whole room ice? I got my wish. I got my wish in this movie. He's very good with all of the ice and the stabby stab. It's great. Then
we get to Jax is trying to hunt down Sub-Zero. They go into like this warehouse. Sub-Zero kicks his ass, takes his arms. Jax loses his arms. We see that in the trailer too.
Rip.
Before Jax goes into the warehouse to find Sub-Zero, he tells Cole to seek out Sonya Blade. She's already there with Kano, who she kidnapped, who Kano had killed one of the chosen warriors, and now he has the marking on him because she's trying to band everyone together. Interesting dynamic between her and Kano. I didn't really like it.
So I did. And the reasoning is very different from his. You can go first.
They're both very like flirty with each other, which I found really weird. And Sonya is supposed to hate Kano. And I don't know. I feel like the actor who played Kano, I can't remember his name right now, but he did a great job. But I also feel like he was a little too goofy at sometimes, because he would just keep throwing out jokes. And that's not to say that Kano doesn't like throw out some like off-color jokes, because he does. But he didn't give me the sense that he's just like a fucking cold-blooded murderer and mercenary like they were playing him off to be. Like, he seemed kind of too goofy for that. I don't think the actor did a bad job of Kano. They basically made him like the Johnny Cage, the comic relief of this movie. That's what they turned Kano into. And I don't necessarily like it.
I still read him as murderer. I think I just consume a bunch of different like superhero-esque type media where the murderers are just wisecracking and awful. And we were watching something recently that I was like, oh, that's what it is. I've been going back and watching certain anime, and in Inuyasha, a lot of the characters who you first meet who are murderers, straight up murderers, murder villages in like feudal Japan, show up as regular characters, and they turn into what Kano is. They're cracking jokes, they hang out with the gang, and I even texted my friend, I was like, remember when so-and-so just wrecked an entire village and now he hangs out with them like a buddy? And I just thought it was weird. That's kind of this dynamic. I didn't hate it because I'm not as familiar with Kano, so I thought he was funny. I did think the one-liners got to be a little too much. It was just a little overdone. Could have taken a few steps back on some of them, but I I openly laughed very loud for some of them. My issue, and I realize that again, we tell stories differently now. That's fine. But my issue with the original film was that he was a little bit rapey, which I get it. He's a bad guy.
But he's supposed to be.
But I don't need to watch that anymore. It just is annoying at this point. I don't need to.
I feel like that adds to his character.
I'm over that trope. So I didn't dislike they were flirty for that first scene, and I was like, that's different, okay. But then it kind of stopped, and he's always been rude flirtatious with her, and she's been like, meh. This was actually the first time that I didn't straight up just like, oh my god, get her off the screen. I didn't hate Sonia in this movie. Her motivations were a little bit different, and I also think they changed their relationship because he didn't murder someone that she knew. I don't really know why she hates him, but it's not like he murdered Jax. I also liked her relationship with Jax so much more in this movie because we actually see it as opposed to seeing her first and then finding Jax later. So they actually gave her more of a personality other than, I'm a girl and I'm a fighter. And so I liked it a little bit more. So as the movie progresses, she clearly hates him more and more, so it didn't bother me as much that they showed up in the manner that they did.
Okay, then we get Shang Tsung. He tells them to send the Reptilian, which is Reptile. Reptile shows up, attacks the three of them, and Kano's the one who finishes them off. This fight was okay. The effects weren't bad. They were pretty good. I found nothing wrong with this. Kano does his heart rip fatality from Mortal Kombat 1, and yeah, I thought this was fine.
My one thing with this scene, I thought it was fun. I thought the ending was fine. The only thing that I thought was a little bit weird was Sonia comes in with this like very dramatic and pointed like flip through the air and stabs Reptile, but then she just like falls backwards and they don't give her the kill. They give it to Kano, which why?
Because probably because he needed to prove himself because he was still chained up at the beginning.
But it just, why give Sonia that moment right before he kills Reptile? If you gave it to her the first and she like dealt like the first blow on Reptile, I could see that.
Well, she threw the knives in him.
She did, but it was just oddly placed because it was so like kind of slow-mo. She's spinning through the air and she gets him and it's like, haha, and then all of a sudden she didn't really do anything and then Kano rips his heart out. I didn't need that in there at all. Like, it didn't look cool. It looked kind of pathetic. So that was
I thought Reptile looked great, and he used his tongue move, and he used he had the acid spit. I don't think he actually spit acid on anyone, but he used it to get into the building.
He used
or the
it
trailer or whatever.
Make things look like a xenomorph had been there.
And he uses invisibility, and he looked fine. I thought the effects for Reptile looked great.
Yeah, I was cool with that. It was a fun scene.
After this, then we get the whole trailer burns down. But Kano has like the pages, and he knows how to get to this temple that apparently Raiden's at. So Sonya bribes him, saying that she'll give him $2 million or $3 million because Kano ups the ante. Kano's, I'm assuming his black dragon friend, flies them into the middle of nowhere.
It was some lady he knew from down under. She's Australian. Okay. She says your mom's been dead for 30 years.
Yeah, but I just also assumed that she was also in the black dragon.
She's just an old lady.
And they go to the desert, and then there they find Liu Kang. And Liu Kang is also searching out people who have the dragon marking on them.
I love him even more in this movie.
Yeah, I think Liu Kang was great. I thought
perfect.
He was reduced to like a supporting role, like a very supporting role, but I thought he was good, but I think I could have used more Liu Kang in this movie, is all that I feel like I should say.
I could have too. So the thing that I actually liked about it is that you see more of a seasoned Liu Kang. He's not questioning his worth, which is what we've gotten for Liu Kang in every iteration of Mortal Kombat movie. He's like, I don't think I belong here. Like in the original one, the reason he comes back is because his little brother is killed by Shang Tsung. So he's like, I left and now I don't even know what to do with myself. It's because of me that my brother has died. But he doesn't really believe in himself. And in the second one, he's still kind of gaining that confidence, whatever movie that was.
I don't think we need to talk about Annihilation that much.
And then in Scorpion's Revenge, he is more serious, but he still doubts himself, where here he's like, I have powers, I am strong, I am still training, we need to gather the rest of the champions so that we can be a team. So I loved him.
So my thoughts on Liu Kang in the movie is that I mean, we go back to the temple, we also get introduced to Kung Lao, and we get introduced to
I loved him too.
Arcana, which is how they find their abilities. I'll get into that. From the games, him and Kung Lao kind of have a role swap. They kept Liu Kang's lore where he originally was an orphan who was then adopted into the Order of Light and then became like the chosen one. He's more of like the confident one, the chosen one in most of the Mortal Kombat games, whereas Kung Lao is more of like the sidekick, the guy who's a little bit more cocky. And in this one, I feel like Kung Lao was the one who was like, I am the chosen. And they kind of alluded to like, he's the descendant of the great Kung Lao. He's the chosen one. I feel like they kind of swapped roles with them, and I don't know if I like it.
Have they always been cousins?
Yes.
Okay, so they're cousins. I did not know that because I've never seen Kung Lao in a movie.
This is Kung Lao's first movie appearance. Actually, yeah, it is.
Yeah, I thought he was great. I was so happy that we're seeing characters we haven't seen before, and they're a little more fleshed out on both sides, evil and good. Because I'm sick of seeing the same characters every time.
Don't get me wrong, Kung Lao was great. I loved, they gave him his teleport ability. I mean, you gotta give him the hat. He used the hat well. His martial arts were fantastic. Max Huang, I think, is the guy who plays Kung Lao. Yeah, he was one of the best parts of this movie, I thought. He kind of took up this role as like the leader, and that's not who Kung Lao is. Liu Kang is the leader.
I have a distinct feeling that that's the way they wanted it to play out because, again, when you do meet Liu Kang in all the other iterations, he's unsure of himself. Where here, he's more sure of himself, but he very much makes it apparent that he looks up to Kung Lao. He is his cousin. They are a unit. They are a team. And I got the sense that Kung Lao has been doing this for longer and is just maybe more of a skilled fighter. And like you said, is more confident, sure of himself, etc., so that when he is gone, Liu Kang steps in and takes over that role and maybe is the chosen one, which, who knows?
Up until this point, there's a ton of Easter eggs in this movie. Mm-hmm. We see an Easter egg of Nightwolf, we see an Easter egg of Kotal Khan. However, I'm going to just make a whole video on the Easter eggs rather than go through it in this video because I feel like this video is going to be more just reserved to our review of the movie. Yes, I will make a whole Easter egg video, which that's actually what got me the most excited about this movie, was being like, oh look.
And even I caught some of them. We're in the temple and there is a whole training stage.
Arcana. So this is them explaining how people have powers, is like they have to find their Arcana, which to me it kind of felt like Mortal Kombat Annihilation's find your animality.
Feel your animality.
I don't know. I just don't understand why they can't just go with it. Like, I don't need an explanation. And I understand some people are like, well, we want to know why they have powers. And it's just like, you could have just been like, I mean, I guess this is what they did, but like everyone can just like unlock a power within them. But I thought some of their powers were fucking stupid. Like, Jax's Arcana is his metal arms, which also, I guess they healed him. I missed this line of dialogue, but I guess they healed him through searching other realms to find a technology to heal his arms.
Let's pause for a second, because now we're jumping all over the place. So we got to the point where we met Liu Kang, we then met Kung Lao. As they're getting into Raiden's temple, they find Jax, because like you said, Liu Kang has been looking for all of the champions. They find him without arms, and when he's sitting there, Sonia's like, is he going to make it? He doesn't have arms. He mentions that the ice from Sub-Zero has cauterized his wounds, and they are searching through all of the different realms to figure out a way to save him and to give him arms again. They give him these kind of dinky little metal arms, and then what Steve is talking about is when he finally discovers his Arcana, they become the big, like, beefy metal arms later. I'm not sure how I felt about that.
Why, like, futuristic, like, cyberpunky, like, how is he getting this, like, these cyberpunky arms from, like, an ancient power with it? Just doesn't, it feels weird and it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, that's kind of stupid.
So
just have him bring him to the military and give him his metal arms.
It felt to me, a lot of this Arcana idea felt to me very much like a lot of other folklore tales that I've watched, where the power is within you and you are there to untap it and bring it out. So everyone goes through these different tests, whether they know it or not. to be able to bring it out. So when he gets his, he is saving Sonia. His arms are still dinky at that point, and he's been fighting because he kind of gets the idea of how to use them, but to do that, he is saving his partner, his friend, who's been there forever, so now he's like, oh, I am strong. They had a moment when he was training with them and he felt weak, and he was like, these just aren't me. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm useless. And she reminds him that when she started, he's like, no, you're not useless. Either you keep going or you will regret the fact that you didn't. So it kind of unlocks that in him, but again, I can see what you're saying, where it's just like, I get unleashing a mythical power within yourself, but literally just making your armor more armor, that's very like
why are they cybernetic? Why isn't if that's his power, his arms would have like Wolverine style grown back or something? Like, why are they these like programmable cybernetic arms that it doesn't make sense? This is where I feel like where I said earlier, where it's like the movie studio execs kind of butted in. Because I feel like when there's stuff in a movie that just doesn't make sense, and it's just like, throw it in there. It's just like the studio execs being like, wouldn't this be cool if this happened? And that's how I felt about stuff like this. It's like, I'm just gonna throw this out here now, since we're talking about Arcana. Kano doesn't get his eye the entire movie, and it's like, why was that a choice?
Well, he gets his eye, he doesn't get the metal portion of it.
That's who Kano is.
Back to the arms for 2 seconds. I had mentioned to you that I thought it would have made more sense if they put the full arms on him and he wasn't able to tap into it and use them like he should be able to, and his Arcana would be mastering them. Kind of like in like an Evangelion or a Pacific Rim type movie or show, where they're like, I can't sync up to the technology because I don't feel right. Whereas he finally just he stops thinking about it too much. He just goes on instinct, and he's like, oh, these are me. Now I understand. As far as Kano is concerned with his eye, I don't understand the full reason as to why he has a metal eyeball. He will tell me that at some point.
No, we never know.
Okay,
he just has it. From MK1, he just always has the metal eye, and you just assume that he got injured and got it cybernetically implanted into his head. That's who Kano is the eye.
But he still has a laser eye.
And that's just a cop-out. It's not, you're not giving him his metal eye. It's just felt stupid to me.
Sonia doesn't have a mark. Kano has a mark. Kano, Cole, Liu Kang, and Kung Lao are the only ones who are training, and Cole and Kano don't have their powers yet. They're just fighting. They're sitting at dinner, and Kano's being an asshole, and they just keep digging into him. It's Kung Lao and Liu Kang, and they're just like, you're dumb. You're stupid. You're a failure.
Because they knew that's what would bring out his Arcana.
His anger is his Arcana. So, like, again, the Arcana didn't bother me as much because I'm like, I get where they're going, but I can see as someone who likes these games so much, it's just like, just make them have powers. I think it made it accessible.
You don't necessarily, like, you can explain that they unlock their powers somehow, but like giving it a name and being like, unlock your Arcana, it felt to me almost like
a video game?
It felt to me like midichlorians from Star Wars. That's what it felt like. Like, we need to explain this and give it a name. And it's like, you don't need to explain the Force. Like,
yeah. That's fair.
Kano's identifier is his eye, so I don't understand why they didn't give him his eye.
Reptile did scratch his face, and he keeps those scars for the rest of the movie. So I feel like that was them. I also think he's going to come back in the next movie.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Steve doesn't, but I do.
Shang Tsung shows up at the temple. He doesn't want the prophecy to be fulfilled that the Earthrealm will stop Outworld and they will prevent them from winning the 10th tournament. So he decides to go and take out all of the fighters before the tournament even begins. That's fine. He hires Sub-Zero to go and kill these fighters, which is why Sub-Zero is after them. And then they just go to the temple, and Shang Tsung's like, I don't care them breaking the rules. And then Raiden puts a protective barrier in them, and I just thought that this was fucking stupid. I didn't like it. It's like, there's so much buildup in this movie to the tournament, to like get to the, once we get to they keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it, and you're like waiting for it to happen, and it doesn't happen.
After they get attacked, Cole is like, I can't do this anymore. I don't think I'm cut out for this. I'm a failure. Because from when they got him and brought him into this whole thing, he was a fighter who would lose every fight because he would get this close to fighting and then something would trigger in him where he was like, I am not good enough. From some unexplained fight that he lost a long time ago, which is why everyone makes fun of him and says that he's a loser, he would always just not do well. So he was like, I'm not cut out for this. I'm not going to help you. I'm going to help you fail. And so Raiden says, fine, go home. And he sends him home to his wife and his daughter, and they're like, husband, dad, we're so happy to have you back.
Cabal talks to Kano to get him to switch sides. And then that breaks down the barrier, and that gives Shang Tsung his opportunity to attack the warriors. So he attacks the warriors. We got this big, like, kind of all-out fight. Nitara, who shows up for like a hot second, I thought her CGI didn't look very good.
That seems to be her end game, is she shows up, she screams, and then she die.
Yeah, and then she died and Kung Lao just sawed her in half, which he is one of his fatalities in the game.
He threw his hat and I can see it in the dirt and all of a sudden it starts spinning and I'm like, oh no. He's gonna saw her in half. And he did.
Old Frisbee hat himself.
While they're attacking the temple, he's at home on the farm or wherever they are, and they send Goro?
Yeah,
which was a choice.
They send Goro after him, which, like,
I didn't agree with that choice. I actually thought it was one of the weaker fights in the film.
It was, and I just feel like this doesn't do Goro justice, because he's the first, like, I mean...
He's the guy. He's the big guy with 4 arms. Like...
Yeah, he's, you know, iconic. And they just sent him here, but then this is how Cole finds his Arcana, which I thought the Tonfas were dumb. And then he kills Goro, who's the champion of Mortal Kombat, who, again, like, clearly they're not going to move forward with the tournament when he's killing the champion of Mortal Kombat. He's gonna beat the champion of Mortal Kombat with the armor, like, after he loses all of his fights all the time.
So this is the point in the movie where Cole, like, completely unlocks, yes, his Arcana, but unlocks himself. So he is fighting Goro. Goro is impossibly huge. I actually, as far as he looked, like...
He looked fine. I don't have any gripes with the CGI.
No, I thought he looked good. His design was good.
He looked like every other CGI monster that you have in movies today.
Him big. His Arcana is... And I said it as it's happening. I'm like, oh, he's a protector. So he is the descendant of Scorpion, whose biggest failing was that he couldn't protect his family and his village. So that was something that he's out for revenge. So down the bloodline, this is going to trickle, and he is completely unlocked. He's like, oh my gosh, I need to protect my wife and my child. And he keeps having these flashbacks to, like, Scorpion in hell or scenes from the beginning where Scorpion is dying. And then that's how he finally, I think he's like about to get crushed, and then this armor starts appearing around him, and Steve said it, it's basically like the armor from Black Panther. It takes damage, but then he is able to take all of that force and bring it out.
Yep.
So not only is he actually a talented fighter when he needs to be pushed to the edge, but now he has this extra strength behind him. Not sure how I felt about the Tonfas. I like seeing a different weapon that we don't normally see in media. Like, I've seen them in fighting games, but I haven't really seen them in, like, a mainstream movie that I've been watching recently. It's usually swords. So I thought that was interesting. But his whole persona is, I am not a loser, and I am a protector, and I will do well, and I will succeed. So this whole point in the movie, I got it. I just don't think it needed to be Goro.
Shang Tsung also then at this time takes Kung Lao's soul, kills him.
So sad.
And then Raiden transports everyone to the Void, where then now they're in the Void. This is also the time where Jax gains, gets his arms or whatever. So they get taken to the Void, and then here's where they come up with the plan, where if they're not going to do the tournament, we're going to bring the tournament to them, and then have Raiden transport everyone to the different location. Jax takes on Reiko, Cole and Liu Kang take on Cabal and Melina, and Sonya takes on Kano. Which, like, why did Cole and Liu Kang have to be transported to the same place if everyone else got transported to different places? Why is he like, we'll take on these things, this will be a tag match, and the rest will be singles matches?
Because they're a tag team?
But they're not.
A lot of tag teams are formed at the last second.
It just didn't make sense. Why didn't they just do their own matches?
They weren't really even tag teaming. They
it was
were
like,
just
well, we
fighting
have to
in the same
film
spot.
for the next 2 days, and we need to film 2 fights, so let's just put them in one. Jumping ahead, but I did like that we got Melina full mouth for a hot second.
I kept saying, I was like, she's cool. Like,
She's one of the most popular characters in Mortal Kombat.
oh,
So
I didn't know that.
yes. Let's go with Jax versus Reiko first.
It was like 2 seconds long, and I didn't really.
Yeah, and Reiko, really? He didn't even look like Reiko. Anyway, they get transported to the pit. Why bring them to the pit if you're not going to use the pit? You see all the spikes down there, and I was like, cool. For a hot second, I'm like, cool. He's going to knock Reiko into the pit. And then I was like, oh no, I've seen in the trailer he does his head clap fatality. Head clap fatality. Which is fine. I mean, it looked good. And that fight seemed very short. Probably because I believe Mikad Brooks is how you pronounce his name, is not a fighter, so, and it doesn't, I would assume that the guy who played Reiko isn't a martial artist either. He looked like a power lifter.
He swung hammer.
He did swing hammer.
And I don't know that character, so I had no connection to
He's a minor character. He had a very big storyline in the Mortal Kombat comics.
Okay.
But not in really any of the games. Then we go to Kano versus Sonia, back at Sonia's trailer, which was a choice, which I thought was destroyed also.
Because they're sitting there talking to him as he's looking through the pages. And then he says something about it being a shithole, and she's like, I've lived here my whole life.
But it was destroyed when Reptile showed up, because she was like, all that research gone.
Yeah, because it got burned in that one room that they were fighting in.
Yeah. Anyway, they fight. It was okay. It wasn't a great fight.
I actually thought that this was a pretty decent fight.
I liked when they were in the bathroom and she took his head and slammed it into the toilet.
This is the best fight choreography that I've seen for Sonya Blade in a live action movie. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't like the mud fight?
No. She did a really good job. I think the way that they were able to have her fight was very tailored to her and Kano. I thought it looked realistic. And she was more of a military fighter, which I also liked. Before, they just had her like spin through the air a lot. And only use her legs. She didn't use her legs once in this movie.
She used her legs to jam his face into the toilet.
I don't remember that, but I know you're right. I just was like, wow, I'm actually enjoying.
Because I thought she was gonna leg grab him again, and I was gonna be like, again? For a third time?
It was actually very good. I liked a lot of the ingenuity that they used for it. She used a lot of objects just like around her trailer, which was great.
And then she kills him with a garden gnome where she jabs it into his eye, which I know what you're gonna say. He's gonna come back with the metal eye in the next movie. But the dragon tattoo was transferred to him, which means he's dead.
Which I have a trump card for that. Also, I liked the fact that she stabbed him with a garden gnome because earlier in the movie, as he's saying something about how terrible her house is or whatever, he hawks a loogie into her garden gnome, into like his hand. So when she's reaching around for something to get him, I was like, I see what's there. I see what you're going for. Because he was saying something about her house being stupid and she was like, ugh, feels great. And I was like, good for you.
We get Liu Kang versus Cabal, and at the same time, Cole versus Melina.
I really liked Liu Kang versus Cabal.
Liu Kang versus Cabal was cool. Cabal's powers looked cool. I liked Cabal as a character, actually. I
liked him too. But I also thought he was kind of a Kano clone, as far as writing.
Well, he's a Black Dragon member, so... and he kind of fits the same type of character that they made him in Mortal Kombat 11, in terms of like his voice inflections, his demeanor and everything. So I thought that was very well done, and he looked great, and he fought great, and then Liu Kang kills him, turning into the Fire Dragon.
He has a beautiful fighting style, so I think they picked a perfect person to be this character. He's fantastic.
And then Cole versus Melina, which Sonya just shows up in the middle of the fight, I guess because she was done with her fight with Kano, and Raiden was like, yeah, you can help out.
We have now established that Cole can fend himself.
Like, yeah, why does he need Sonya's help to beat Melina?
I know why they did it. So one of the reasons I actually liked Sonya a lot more in this movie is because her convictions are so much more relatable and understanding. It's not just, I'm a girl and I'm in the military. I'm not just a little girl, which has been the last 3 iterations of Sonya that I've watched in every movie. It's like, okay, I get it, but like, we're in the 2000s at this point.
Yeah.
Women have been in the military for a long time, and I understand that this is still a thing that women fight for, like being a female in male-dominated things myself, sometimes it gets to be that way. But it was very much, you don't have a tattoo. You're not even chosen.
Yeah.
Why are you here? And Melina is fighting her in the beginning when Shang Tsung comes and invades the temple and she goes to kill her and she goes, "You aren't a chosen one, your death is meaningless," and just leaves her because it's not even worth it to kill her, which I liked. So it gives her more drive to be someone who is supposed to be here, who is strong and who knows her worth, because you can see she's kind of getting like torn down a little bit in the movie, but she's still there to support her friend Jax, who is clearly injured and is coming back from something and is chosen. She's so much better in this film than she has been in any of the other things, and I'm like, okay, maybe this is why people like her. I don't know if she's like this in the games at all. I probably wouldn't like her in the games either, but that's why she kills Melina.
But I do think it was kind of like, we finally see Melina full teeth and she just dies. I did like they gave Melina her teleporting abilities. They gave Sonya the ring power that she usually gets from her gauntlets. Which is the other thing, is like Mortal Kombat in games uses a lot of the moves are just technology. So you don't necessarily need
It looks like
all
they
these
wanted
powers.
to make this less like sci-fi cyberpunk fantasy and make it leaning a little more towards mythological.
After that, we get the last fight, which is Cole versus Sub-Zero, or actually Scorpion. Cole and Scorpion versus Sub-Zero.
So they're all fighting. They think they're all well and done. They all decided that they would take on Melina, the other guy.
Cabal.
Yeah, I'll never remember his name. Melina Cabal.
The other guy.
Melina Cabal, Kano,
and Reiko.
And Reiko. They pair off to like take care of them, and they all unanimously vote, which I like that they're kind of becoming a team, because they're still like together but separate, which is what they'll need to be when they go, to do whatever.
Side note real quick.
Yes.
How did they know all their names? They never spoke their names before. Cole's like, "You take Melina." Jax is like, "I'll take Reiko." They've never once said like, "I'm Reiko" or like, "I'm Melina."
I don't care. They all unanimously decide, well, no one can take Scorpion on it. Scorpion.
Sub-Zero.
Ice Boy on his own, and they're gonna go do that. But in the meantime, while they're all fighting, Sub-Zero is like, he's got a wife and a child. I'm going to take them but not kill them, which I thought was a choice. You're evil and you've already killed all of Scorpion's bloodline, and you're after Cole, who has a daughter who could continue the blood. Just kill her first? She's helpless. But he took them and he froze them, so they're still alive. That was odd. But he comes out of the ether and he's like, "I've got them." And then he runs in after them by himself. So that's how they get back to his gym, which is just covered in ice. And I was like, finally. The whole room is ice.
We get Cole versus Sub-Zero, and then Scorpion decides to show up right before Sub-Zero kills Cole and says his famous Scorpion line.
Get over here!
I wish it was in Japanese. Hanzo Hisashi has spoken only Japanese this entire time. The only thing he says in English is "get over here."
It's fan service,
But it could have still been fan service, but in Japanese. It's not like, I hate the movie.
Yeah.
I wish it was in Japanese.
And this fight was hands down the best fight of the movie.
The first fight of the film, which is the Lin Kuei versus,
Hanzo Hisashi.
yeah, and this fight are the best fights.
Yes. And I think that's probably because they're the two best martial artists on set. This fight was great because they really showcased Sub-Zero's power. They showcased Scorpion's power too, but more so Sub-Zero.
Which I like because we've seen Scorpion's power in several other forms.
I get that they didn't do the full-on skull head thing because it might look a little cheesy. Like, it might not work with his character if he just like went full Ghost Rider and just like did the whole flame thing. But they still did it. But I feel like it kind of looks worse without the flame head because he was just like, there's just like this fire coming out of his mouth. And
See,
I don't know.
I actually liked this because they're both wearing the masks that come up here on their faces, and he even says to Sub-Zero, he's like, you know, you sent me to hell, but instead I learned how to control it. And he takes the mask off, and as the fire's coming out, his skin and face are disintegrating into the skull, and it's kind of like a slow burn up to here, and by the time he's done, he puts the mask back on and his face comes back.
Yeah, but when he starts, it just looks weird. He's like, it's just like this weird look with the flames coming out, and I was like, eh.
The things that I hated about this part, there were two. In this, no, it's not even this scene. It's a little bit in this scene, but also in the scene with Goro. Cole gets his armor, and I think it's supposed to look flush with his body. And there are some points where he's fighting and I see the collar kind of move, and it just looks a little cheesy. Everyone's costuming looked so good. I'm obsessed with the costuming in this movie. I thought it was great, but that kind of looked a little nyeh. And then there's one point, and I think it's because Scorpion does use fire to kind of like get rid of some of the ice, and it wakes up his wife and his daughter that are like frozen to the cage because they're at his fighting gym. It's an above shot, and they're in the ring, and they go to step out, and I don't know if it's because they're on a mat, but after, like, as someone who watches wrestling and fighting, the mats are not loose, so they go to take steps, and I can see like the mat moving, and I'm like, that was a weird choice.
I feel like they could have CGI'd that out, but they didn't, but it's okay.
At the end of the day, it's the teeniest, tiniest nitpick. I just thought it was weird.
Shang Tsung is like, he basically accepts defeat, but he's like, I'm coming back, and I'm coming back with armies instead of fighters, which is what I think alluding to the invasion, which is probably what they're going to go with in the next storyline. You talk about the tournament the whole time, you're training for the tournament. I felt like the whole time that they're at the Sky Temple, it was a little weird pacing. The movie as a whole kind of felt rushed to me. And we spent way too much time, I don't even think this is the Sky Temple, it's just Raiden's temple. We spent way too much time in Raiden's temple training, and that like hour that we were there, I would have rather of them just explored more, like fleshed out the story a little bit more. I wanted to see them go to the tournament. I wanted to see this end either one of two ways. Either they go to the tournament happens, but as the movie was progressing, I'm like, well, that's not gonna happen because we're way too deep into the movie now and we're not there yet. Or it ends and it's just gonna be like the ending of this movie is the tournament beginning. What had Shang Tsung had said, where I'm coming back with armies, kind of alluded to we're not gonna get the tournament at all. And the tournament is the foundation of the whole franchise. It just doesn't really sit well with me. And then Raiden's like, we need to go find more people, more chosen ones. And then we get, the Johnny Cage stinger at the end, where Citizen Cage starring Johnny Cage. I mean, I'm excited to see Johnny Cage in the next movie, but it feels like Raiden's gonna build his army for when Shang Tsung comes, and probably Shao Kahn, because there was a lot of, we saw Shao Kahn in a statue, we saw him in like the murals in Raiden's temple. So I'm assuming we'll get Shang Tsung and Shao Kahn will invade in the next movie, if they do another movie.
So here's my trump card, is Shang Tsung comes back and he's like, you won, whatever. Death is but another doorway. To which, to me, as someone who reads a lot of comics and watches a lot of nerd stuff, it's like, he's gonna bring them back from the dead. Does this, I don't know if that's true. I could just be spitting things out of my butt here, but I have a feeling that certain characters are gonna come back.
Well, Sub-Zero is definitely gonna turn into Noob Saibot. I mean, that's what happens in the games. He signed on for 4 movies.
Yes, he said he'd come back with armies, and again, you know the story better than I do. He could be right and be talking about the invasion, or I'm thinking he's prepping more people to just destroy Earthrealm in the coming tournament. This was clearly set up. I did not mind that they didn't do the tournament because I don't want a whole bunch of setup and then a tournament in 2 seconds at the end of the movie. I'd rather a full-on movie. And if you're gonna do the tournament next movie, that's fine with me. Or if you're gonna do another little bit of setup, maybe half set up to get the other characters in that we all know, like Johnny Cage and whoever else is missing, and then do like maybe start of the tournament. This tournament is long and it's huge, and I feel like a lot of the times, like a lot of characters either get cut or a lot of characters are like, hi, and it's like, I want to see more of this world that they have. I liked the foundation that they laid down. For someone who doesn't play these games, I'm either completely just thrown into a whole lot all at once or not given enough. And personally, I thought that this was a good first layer.
I thought it was okay. I thought it was just okay. There was a lot that I didn't like, there was a lot that I felt cheated out on, and there was a lot that I feel like they tried to do well. I guess this is where we rank it and put it up against everything.
I didn't even get to go through my favorite parts.
Oh, all right. What's your favorite parts of the movie?
I was obsessed with Sub-Zero's costume because it looked black, and we were watching this movie and he was like, I wish it was more blue. There were so many subtleties in a lot of the costumes that I really, really enjoyed. So Sub-Zero's costume was mostly black, but in every scene he was in, the lighting was shown on him so that the blue shimmer on his costuming popped a little bit more. I loved that. Instead of it being just super blue like we got in like the 90s movies, which again, different times, so different costuming and different way of looking at it, but also different than the animated movie that came out a couple years ago, or like a year ago, where they were just like, that's Scorpion, he wears yellow. It's a cartoon and you can get away with that, but I just thought it was very clever. When we're back in feudal Japan and we're looking at Hanzo Hisashi, you can tell it's him because his robes are like this deep, like almost golden brown, and the trim is that nice gold. So I'm like, I knew who it was because I knew who the actor was anyway, and I'm familiar with the story at this point, but I was like, that's really clever. I really like that. All of the outfits looked like they were functional fighting outfits instead of just like, this person's hot. My favorite parts of the film, honestly, were the fight choreography. I thought it was really well done. He didn't care for it as much, but as someone who, again, watches a lot of fighting, both scripted and unscripted, I thought it was great.
Listen, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing that I didn't like about the fight choreography. I didn't think they were bad. However, going back to the original Mortal Kombat movie, I thought that the fights in that movie, I mean, there were some like not great ones, but the ones that were really good, I thought the fight choreography was great in those movies, and they still holds up today. Whereas in this movie, it was a lot of, it might be the way it was edited, and I did notice some bad editing in the movie too. I thought the final fight of the film, Scorpion vs. Sub-Zero, was fantastic.
Great.
Which is something about the original Mortal Kombat where I guess it's maybe they didn't cut between multiple fights. It was kind of more one-on-one type thing. Whereas in this movie, it was like there was a lot of fights happening at once. They're cutting back and forth between different fights, and it just kind of took me, like I wanted to see like a one-on-one type of fight thing, like of what we're used to with Mortal Kombat. So that's why I feel like overall, Mortal Kombat 95, if you're lumping all the fights together up against all the fights together in this movie, I think that movie had the better fights. But I think the best fights out of all the movies is Scorpion vs. Sub-Zero in this movie. Let's give it a rating, and then we can see where it fits. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? So we just watched this, and I'm still on the movie high, and usually when you come off of the movie high, it goes lower. And I thought this movie was just okay at best. I thought it was better than Scorpion's Revenge.
I think I thought that too.
But you also had Scorpion's Revenge higher than 95 Mortal Kombat. And I kind of feel like I like Mortal Kombat 95 better.
I think I said at the beginning of the movie, it's a very good blend between the two. So I actually think just because Scorpion's Revenge can rely on the fact that it can go between worlds, then nothing looks weird. It's animated. You can kind of get away with so much more in an animated setting for something like this. I actually think I'm going to keep it at the top with, I think I gave it 4.5 punches.
You gave 4 punches to Scorpion's Revenge.
4. So this one, I would put it like 3.7. For now, I'm going to put it at a tie. If I have to come back and re-edit my statement, I will.
So I gave Scorpion's Revenge a 3, and I gave 95 Mortal Kombat a 3.5, and I'm gonna give this a 3.25.
Wow. So I'm still.
And that's high. I feel like this gets a 3.25 for all the things that it doesn't do correctly. Also, whereas Scorpion's Revenge gets a 3 for all the things that it does do correctly. If that makes sense.
Yes.
I want to like this movie more. I really do, but I just have a lot of gripes with it. And the reason why I like the 95 Mortal Kombat more than this is because I do feel like it's more, whereas this had more lore in it and they tried to explain everything, I think it also kind of did a disservice because it wasn't really true to the games as much as they're saying that it is. And I actually feel like Mortal Kombat 95 is more true to the games, with the exception of the storyline between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, because that's a pretty big storyline and they didn't touch upon that at all in the original movie. and that was one of the main driving points of this movie. But as a whole, that's like a B plot line. That's not the main plot line of Mortal Kombat. To not have the tournament at all, to kind of just go over the tournament, to kind of exclude it and not have it in sight for a sequel, I feel like I gotta take away from it.
I also think he's jumping the gun, but we'll see when this next movie actually comes out.
So, with that score, I think that puts it, you're giving it a 4?
I'm tying it with Scorpion's Revenge because
So
I'm
that
still on the enjoyment
It's gonna
ride.
put it 0.25 points over Scorpion's Revenge.
Well done.
So our new rankings of the Mortal Kombat movie franchises is as follows. Mortal Kombat 2021, Mortal Kombat Legends, Scorpion's Revenge, Mortal Kombat 1995, Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
I still want to marry Liu Kang. He's perfect and precious, and I will protect him. That has remained constant throughout everything we've watched.
And maybe we will watch Mortal Kombat The Journey Begins. We'll see. They can battle it out with Annihilation for who's going to take last place. If you want to see some, I'm going to be making some more Mortal Kombat movie related videos, the Easter eggs, maybe some theories for the sequel, stuff like that. You're interested in that? And if you're interested in Mortal Kombat lore and story, then head on over to my channel, MK Temple. Please give me a subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like this video. It would mean a lot to me, and hopefully I will see you guys on all my other videos.